When Captain Amara Lewis, a brilliant black pilot, arrived to lead her international flight, the crew refused to recognize her authority, forcing her to wait outside while passengers watched in silence. What began as 7 minutes of humiliation turned into a storm of defiance, as whispers of racism, betrayal, and silence echoed through the cabin. But when passengers' phones captured every word, the world saw the truth, and justice soared, from systemic prejudice and quiet complicity to Amara's unshakable resilience and her bold decision to fire the very crew that undermined her. This is the emotional, dramatic journey of a woman who refused to bow, reclaiming her dignity at 35,000 feet, and proving that some storms can only make wings stronger. The sliding doors of JFK Terminal 4 parted with their usual hiss, spilling travelers into a rush of luggage wheels and boarding calls. Captain Amara Lewis walked with steady steps, her navy uniform crisp, her captain's bars gleaming gold against dark shoulders. Heads turned, but not with recognition, more with doubt. Her presence was enough to unsettle the unspoken assumptions of the terminal. At the gate, 3 agents stood behind the counter, their chatter cut short when Amara approached. "Good morning," she said, voice calm but carrying. "Captain Lewis, reporting for Flight 782 to Madrid." The youngest agent blinked. "Sorry, are you crew?" "I'm the captain," Amara replied evenly, sliding her badge across the counter. Silence. Then, a smirk. "Right, Captain." The agent glanced sideways at his colleague, who stifled a laugh. "Mind showing your pilot's license?" Amara tilted her head. "You didn't ask the last captain for that." "Well, you'll understand," the older agent said smoothly. "Standard verification." "No," Amara said softly, firmly. "It's not." Her license was already in her hand. She had learned to carry it ready for moments like this, but the sting remained. She handed it over. The agent inspected it for longer than necessary, as though waiting for it to reveal fraud. He passed it back reluctantly. "Fine. But could you wait outside the gate area for a moment? We're, sorting things out." Amara's eyes narrowed. "Outside?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, tone polite but dripping with dismissal. "Just until the real captain arrives." The words hung in the air like a slap. Passengers nearby turned, curious. A man whispered, "Did he just say?" Amara steadied her breath. "I am the real captain, the only captain assigned to this flight." The second agent, a woman with a tight bun, leaned forward. "Look, don't make this difficult. Procedures are procedures. Just wait outside the jet bridge until we clear things up." Her colleague smirked again. "Wouldn't want to confuse the passengers, you know." Amara's jaw tightened. She forced her voice to stay level. "You're confusing them right now." For a moment, neither side moved. The line of boarding passengers had slowed, tension crackling through the air. A child tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, can girls fly planes?" The mother shushed him quickly. The older agent crossed his arms. "Captain Lewis, please step aside." It wasn't a request. It was an order dressed in false civility. Amara picked up her badge and license, sliding them back into her pocket with deliberate calm. Her silence was louder than any argument. The narration cut in, like a lens pulling back. Racism rarely shouts. Often, it whispers in policy, in doubt, in delay. The power is not in what is said, but in what is denied. Amara turned, heels striking the tile floor, and walked toward the waiting area outside the gate. Behind her, the agents exchanged chuckles. One muttered, "Unbelievable." Her back remained straight, but every step was heavy with restraint. She had flown through thunderstorms, through turbulence that rattled bones, yet this silence, this humiliation, felt worse. 7 minutes outside, 7 minutes that would decide everything. The hum of boarding echoed through the jet bridge. Amara waited until the final passenger disappeared inside before stepping back toward the aircraft. Her polished shoes clicked against the metal ramp. Every step sounded like defiance. Inside the cabin, the air shifted. Conversations hushed. 2 flight attendants froze mid-lap. Another bent quickly to shuffle safety cards, though her eyes darted toward Amara with something between disbelief and disdain. Amara stood at the threshold. "Good afternoon," she said evenly. "Captain Lewis. We're scheduled for Madrid." The lead flight attendant, a tall man with a practiced smile, gave a tight nod. "Yes, Captain," but his tone landed somewhere between acknowledgement and sarcasm. Behind him, whispers began. "She's really the captain," a younger attendant murmured. Another voice, sharper, "Must be a diversity hire." Amara turned her head slowly. "Say that again." The whisperer blanched, clutching her tray. "Nothing," Captain. Silence pressed down on the cabin. Even passengers sensed the tension. The lead attendant cleared his throat. We weren't expecting you. Why not? Amara asked. He shifted uncomfortably. Just unusual. We're used to, well, someone else. Her gaze pinned him. He didn't answer. Amara took a step closer, lowering her voice so only the crew could hear. I trained for 12 years. I've logged more than 8,000 flight hours. I've flown through storms that would terrify you, and I've earned these bars. She tapped the captain's insignia on her shoulder. So if any of you doubt me, say it now. To my face, no one spoke. But silence has its own cruelty. The younger attendant muttered under her breath again. This time, Amara caught it. Affirmative action. Amara's jaw clenched. Look at me. The attendant looked up, cheeks flushed. You think I'm here because someone lowered the bar for me? Amara's tone cut sharp. No, I'm here because I cleared it, higher than most ever will. Remember that when you serve coffee today. The attendant looked away, shame battling defiance in her eyes. The lead attendant finally found his voice. Captain, no disrespect, but some passengers might be uncomfortable. We don't want to. To what? Amara interrupted. To remind them that authority doesn't always look the way they expect. That professionalism isn't bound by skin. Her words echoed in the narrow cabin. Passengers nearby shifted awkwardly. One businessman smirked, whispering to his colleague. A mother pulled her child close. Amara straightened. Uncomfortable or not, I am the pilot of this aircraft. And if anyone here has a problem, you're welcome to step off right now. No one moved. The silence that followed wasn't respect, but it was compliance. She held their eyes a moment longer, then turned toward the cockpit. The whispers didn't stop. They simply sank lower, like poison seeping underground. The narration slid in, blunt as truth. Racism does not always arrive as slurs or shouts. Sometimes it arrives as a glance, a whisper, a pause too long. It corrodes, not in explosions, but in erosion. What power can a captain hold when her crew refuses to believe the wings on her shoulders? Amara reached the cockpit door. She touched the handle, inhaled, and steadied herself. The storm inside this plane had only just begun. The cockpit door shut with a dull click behind Amara. Inside, the hum of instruments greeted her like loyal allies. Screens glowed, switches gleamed, and the faint scent of oil and leather whispered of control. This was her space, her command. But even here, prejudice seeped in. Her first officer, Kyle Henderson, a fresh-faced young man with a hesitant smile, shifted in his seat. He glanced at her, then quickly away. Captain Lewis. His voice cracked on the word captain. Amara lowered into her chair, strapping in with deliberate calm. That's what the boff mean. He coughed nervously. Sorry, I just didn't know. Thought someone else was scheduled. Is that a problem? No, ma'am. A pause. Not for me. The pause lingered too long. Out in the cabin. The whispers grew louder. A passenger near the front asked, not softly. She's flying this thing. Someone chuckled. Another voice. Guess airlines really will hire anyone these days. The flight attendants tried to hush them, but their own doubt leaked through in the cracks of forced smiles. A child piped up again. Daddy, is she really the pilot? His father laughed under his breath. We'll see if we make it to Spain. Laughter spread in ripples. Amara's hand froze on the throttle. She could hear it all, every snicker, every dismissive word seeping through the door like smoke. She reached for the intercom. Her voice filled the aircraft, calm, clear, unshaken. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. My name is Amara Lewis, and I will be commanding Flight 782 to Madrid today. Our flight time will be 6 hours and 52 minutes, cruising at 36,000 feet. Weather across the Atlantic looks favorable, and we expect a smooth journey. She paused, letting the words settle. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. One businessman muttered, unbelievable. Another whispered, she sounds professional though. Her voice carried on. I want to remind you that the crew and I are here for your safety and comfort. We ask for your respect, as you will certainly have mine. She clicked the intercom off. Silence filled the cabin. Not applause, not relief, just silence. The narration cut in like a camera flash. Authority is not just spoken, it must be received. Yet prejudice plugs ears, blinds eyes, and twists voices into threats. A captain can command the skies, but still be doubted on the ground. And doubt, when left unchecked, mutates into mutiny. Inside the cockpit, Kyle cleared his throat again. Strong announcement. Captain Amara gave him a glance sharp enough to slice steel. Strong, it was the truth. He nodded quickly, fingers fumbling over switches. Behind the door, muffled voices still lingered. The poisonous question lingered too. Is she really the captain? Amara's jaw tightened. She would prove it, not with words, but with command. The cockpit felt too small for the silence pressing inside it. Kyle Henderson sat stiff in the first officer's chair, hands poised above the controls, but unmoving. His eyes kept darting sideways, never quite meeting Amara's. Finally, he spoke. Captain, there's something we need to talk about. Her gaze stayed on the instrument panel. Say it. He shifted uncomfortably. The flight attendants there, not comfortable. Amara turned slowly. Not comfortable with what? With you in command. His words stumbled out like apologies, but each syllable stung like betrayal. They're saying it might be better if you step aside. Her voice was iced. Step aside? For who? He swallowed. I don't know. Maybe a standby captain, just to, avoid a scene. Amara unbuckled her harness with deliberate calm. She stood, the cockpit suddenly feeling like a stage. She pulled the door open. The cabin chatter died instantly. All eyes turned to her. The lead attendant, arms folded, stood like a wall in the galley. The younger attendants flanked him, their nervous energy masked with faux professionalism. Amara's voice was steady, but sharp enough to cut glass. I hear there's a problem. The lead attendant cleared his throat. Captain, some of us are just unsure about safety, about a passenger confidence. Passenger confidence, Amara repeated. Her voice dripped disbelief. You think passengers will feel safer if you undermine their pilot? A younger attendant muttered. We just don't want drama. You've created the drama, Amara shot back. The lead attendant squared his shoulders. We're not saying you're unqualified, just unconventional. Unconventional. The word hung in the air, poisonous in its politeness. Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice to a blade. Say what you mean. He hesitated, eyes flicking toward passengers, now pretending not to eavesdrop. It's just, some of us aren't sure about working under you. The cabin air grew heavier. Passengers leaned forward, curious, some smirked, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Amara locked eyes with him. Do you realize what you're doing right now? This is insubordination. You are refusing the authority of your captain. Do you want me to log that? Because I will. He flinched but held his ground. I have to think about my crew's morale. Your crew's morale. Amara's voice rose, but her control never cracked. Your crew's morale is shaken because their captain is black and a woman. Call it what it is. Don't you dare dress it up as concern for safety. A ripple moved through the passengers' gasps. A few murmurs of agreement, a few nervous chuckles. The younger attendant whispered, almost too softly, she's making it about race. Amara turned sharply. I don't have to make it about race. You already did. The silence that followed was deafening. The narration slid in like a verdict. Betrayal is never louder than when it comes from within. A storm outside can be brave, but when the ship itself mutinies, the captain must fight for the very right to steer. Amara straightened, her voice carrying across the cabin. I will say this once. I am Captain Amara Lewis. This aircraft is under my command. You may not like the sight of me in this uniform, but you will respect it. If any crew member refuses, the door is right there. She pointed to the jet bridge, still attached. Passengers turned their heads toward the door, then back to the attendants. Tension crackled. The lead attendant faltered. His mouth opened, closed. Finally, he muttered, Will, continue. Amara stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that carried weight. Good, because this is not about your comfort. This is about lives. Never forget that. She returned to the cockpit, closing the door behind her with a solid click. Kyle sat frozen, guilt written all over his face. You heard them, Amara said. He nodded slowly. Yes, Captain. Then hear me now. You follow my lead, or you walk off this plane. Choose. Kyle's Adam's apple bobbed. I'll follow, Captain. Her eyes stayed on him a long moment, gauging sincerity. Then she buckled herself back into command. But inside, the sting of betrayal remained. Her crew had shown their hands, and their mutiny was only beginning. The intercom buzzed in the cockpit. Captain Lewis, came the gate agent's clipped voice. We need you to step out for a moment. Management wants clarification. Amara's hand hovered above the switch. Her jaw locked. Clarification, she murmured. Of what? Kyle shifted uneasily in his seat. Maybe just go. Clear it up quickly. Her eyes cut toward him. You'd step out if they asked you. He hesitated. They wouldn't ask me. The silence after his words was heavier than any storm cloud. Amara unbuckled, opened the cockpit door, and walked out. At the jet bridge, the lead gate agent stood waiting, arms crossed. His smirk hadn't faded since their first encounter. Captain Lewis, he said smoothly, we'll need you to wait here. Outside, passengers glanced over from their seats, some leaning into the aisle for a better view. Amara kept her chin high. Why? Just procedural. His smile was all teeth. You understand? No, she said evenly. I don't, the younger agent added with false politeness. It won't be long, just until we confirm with Hiram. 7 minutes, tops. 7 minutes, Amara repeated, tasting the bitterness of the words. The older agent gestured toward the terminal doors. Out there, please. Don't want to confuse the passengers. Her nostrils flared. Confuse them, but she stepped outside. The automatic doors hissed shut behind her, leaving her in the sterile brightness of the boarding area. Conversations buzzed around her. She's the captain, someone whispered. Unbelievable. Imagine trusting that with your life. A man chuckled loud enough for her to hear. 7 minutes, bet she doesn't last 7 seconds in the cockpit. Laughter followed. Amara stood still, arms at her sides, fists curled inside her sleeves. Her silence was a shield, but silence burns. The narration intruded like a wound being examined. Humiliation doesn't always arrive as shouts or slurs. Sometimes it arrives as waiting, as exclusion, as being asked to step outside your own command. 7 minutes is nothing in a lifetime, yet 7 minutes of forced waiting can echo like centuries of exclusion, carried in the marrow of history. Minute 1. Amara remembered her training long nights buried in manuals, sweat pooling on simulator floors, eyes stinging from exhaustion. Minute 2. She remembered her first solo flight, hands trembling but steady on the yoke. Her instructor's stunned silence as she landed perfectly. Minute 3. She remembered her mother's voice. Baby, you'll have to work twice as hard for half the respect. Minute 4. She remembered graduating top of her class, medals shining, cameras flashing, and whispers in the crowd. She won because they needed diversity. Minute 5. She remembered turbulence over the Atlantic, passengers screaming, her calm commands guiding them through storm to safety. Minute 6. She remembered every time she smiled through doubt, every time she swallowed anger, every time she pretended the weight didn't hurt. Minute 7. She remembered who she was. Captain Amara Lewis. The jet bridge door opened. The younger agent poked his head out. Still here, he muttered, half-surprised. Her eyes pierced him. Where else would I be? This is my flight, he smirked. Relax. You people get so emotional. The words struck like knives. Amara stepped closer, her voice low, dangerous. Say that again. His smirk faltered. I was just joking. Jokes reveal the truth, she replied. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Caller ID, Executive Desk -HQ. She answered. Captain Lewis, came a sharp, authoritative voice. We received a report of what's happening at your gate. Is it true you've been asked to step outside? Amara's throat tightened. Yes, ma'am. In front of crew and passengers. A pause. The voice hardened. Stay exactly where you are. Document everything. Do not repeat. Do not step down from command. This will be handled. For the first time that day, Amara felt a shift. Not victory, not yet, but something stirring. Justice. Perhaps. She hung up, eyes lifting to meet the gate agents. He was still smirking, unaware of the storm he had just unleashed. Amara straightened, every inch of her radiating command. 7 minutes outside, 7 minutes of humiliation, but when she stepped back inside, those 7 minutes would become history. The jet bridge door slid open again. This time, Amara walked back inside. Every eye in the cabin followed her. Some passengers leaned forward, eager for a spectacle. Others avoided her gaze, complicit in silence. Her crew straightened nervously. The lead attendant's smirk was gone, replaced with a mask of professional neutrality. Amara's voice carried across the aisle, calm, sharp, controlled. I just spoke with headquarters, she announced. They are aware of everything that has happened here today. Every word, every delay, every humiliation. A ripple ran through the cabin. Phones slid into hands. Passengers began recording. The younger attendant shifted uncomfortably. Captain, we were only what? Amara's voice sliced through, only undermining me, only humiliating me in front of passengers, only questioning whether a black woman could wear these bars. The attendant's mouth opened, but no words came. Amara stepped further down the aisle, her presence commanding. I have flown through storms that bent steel. I have landed engines on fire. I have saved lives you will never know. And yet what shakes this cabin today? Her eyes scanned the rows, the color of my skin. Passengers looked away, guilty, ashamed. Some shifted in their seats, some filmed harder. The lead attendant finally spoke, his voice stiff. Captain, we didn't mean you meant every word, Amara said flatly. And now those words belong to history. 2 witnesses, to headquarters. The narration slid in like truth carved in stone. Silence is a weapon, but so is voice. And when one person breaks silence, the spell of complicity begins to crack. A businessman in row 3 spoke up suddenly. I think it's disgraceful. She's the captain. Let her do her job. Murmurs of agreement followed. Not loud, not unanimous, but enough to shift the air. Amara nodded toward him, then faced the crew again. You asked me to step aside. You tried to erase me from my own command, but I will not step aside, not for your comfort, not for your prejudice, not for anyone. Her words rang through the fuselage, vibrating against the very frame of the aircraft. Kyle's voice came quietly from the cockpit door. Captain, they're listening. I know, Amara said. She turned, walking back toward the cockpit, but just before closing the door, she glanced back at the attendants. Headquarters will want names, she said evenly. I suggest you remember yours. The door shut with a finality that felt like judgment. Inside the cockpit, Kyle looked shaken. Captain, I'm sorry. I should have stood up earlier. Amara strapped in, her movements precise, unshaken. Sorry doesn't erase silence, first officer, but action might. He swallowed hard. Nodding, Amara's hand hovered over the controls. For the first time all day, she felt the tide turning. Not won, not finished, but turning. The plane hadn't even pushed back yet, but the world outside was already watching. Screens lit up across the cabin. Thumbs tapped furiously. Hashtags multiplied like sparks on dry grass. #Captain Lewis. #7 minutes outside. This is racism within minutes. Videos flooded Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Passengers had caught every word. The smirks, the whispers, the gate agent's real captain comment. Can you believe this? A woman in row 8 whispered to her husband, phone glowing in her hand. It's going viral. Her husband shook his head, scrolling. Look, 500,000 views already. A teenager across the aisle turned his camera toward himself. Guys, I'm literally on a flight where the black woman pilot got told to wait outside. Like, what year are we in? Laughter, outrage, disbelief captured and broadcast beyond the cabin walls. The crew felt it first. The lead attendant's confidence cracked. His hand trembled as he adjusted a tray. They're recording us. The younger attendant hissed. This could ruin everything. Amara, from the cockpit, heard their panic seep through the door. She didn't gloat. Her face stayed composed, eyes locked on the glowing instruments in front of her. Kyle whispered, Captain, it's everywhere. Look. He turned his phone to her. Dozens of posts, thousands of shares, comments pouring in. This is why representation matters. How many times has this happened with no camera rolling? 7 minutes of humiliation. 7 centuries of history. Amara exhaled slowly. Good. Let them see. The narration pressed in like a lens zooming out. Justice rarely arrives in silence. It roars when truth escapes the walls meant to contain it. A whisper of humiliation becomes thunder when amplified by 1,000 voices. Back in the cabin, the lead attendant finally broke. He approached Amara's cockpit door, knocking gently. Captain, maybe we can, put this behind us. No harm meant. Amara opened the door slightly, her gaze piercing him. You want me to pretend nothing happened? He licked his lips. Just for the passengers, for the airline, no need for the truth, she cut in. He faltered. Amara's voice stayed low, deliberate. The truth is already outside this aircraft. The world is watching. You can't bury what you've planted. His face paled. He backed away. A businessman across the aisle spoke loudly for everyone to hear. Captain, I support you. I want to say that you've shown more professionalism in this hour than your crew has all day. Others nodded. Some clapped quietly. Not everyone, but enough to shift the balance. The younger attendant muttered, This is out of control. The lead hissed back. Do you want to lose your job? because that's what this is. Amara sat in silence inside the cockpit, letting their panic brew. She didn't need to fight anymore. The truth was fighting for her. The narration struck one last time, sharp as a gavel. Exposure is its own form of justice. You cannot hide prejudice in the dark once light finds it. And when that light spreads, it burns away the smirks, the whispers, the masks. For the first time that day, Amara smiled not out of triumph, but out of certainty. The storm had left the cabin, and it was now raging in the world outside. The cockpit phone rang again. Amara lifted it calmly. "Captain Lewis," came the same authoritative voice from HQ. "We've reviewed the passenger videos. We've heard enough. This is beyond misconducteds, insubordination, and discrimination. You are authorized to remove the crew responsible, effective immediately." Amara's eyes narrowed. "You mean fire them?" A pause. "Yes, Captain. The decision is yours." Amara hung up, her fingers steady. She rose, opened the cockpit door, and stepped into the charged silence of the cabin. Passengers leaned in, phones raised, recording. They knew something was coming. Amara's voice carried, calm but unyielding, "Attention, as captain of this flight, I am exercising my by airline command to dismiss crew members who have undermined my leadership and endangered the trust required on this aircraft." Gasps rippled, the lead attendant's face drained of color. You can't do that." Amara's eyes locked on him. "Watch me." She stepped forward, her presence filling the aisle. "You," she said, pointing at the lead, "from the moment I arrived, you doubted, mocked, and resisted me. You are dismissed. Collect your things. You will not fly this aircraft." His jaw dropped. "Captain, I was only trying to what? Protect the passengers, or protect your prejudice." He opened his mouth again, but Amara's voice cut sharper. "Save your excuses. You're done," passengers whispered, some gasping, some smiling. Phones tilted higher. She turned to the younger attendant who had whispered to varsity higher. "And you undermined me with every word, every whisper, every sideways glance. You thought your silence would shield you. It won't. You're dismissed." The attendant's eyes brimmed with tears. "Please, I didn't mean you meant every syllable." "And now they're recorded for the world to hear." The girl covered her face, trembling. Finally, Amara's gaze swept across the remaining crew. "Anyone else who refuses my authority should step off now. This is your last chance." Silence. No one moved. Her eyes lingered on each one, daring them, but none found the courage to resist again. The narration pressed in like a verdict. Power is not always seized with violence. Sometimes it is reclaimed with a single sentence, spoken in the right moment. And sometimes justice is not poetic because it sings, but because it silences. The lead attendant tried one last desperate plea. "Captain, please, you don't understand. This will ruin me. I have a family." Amara's eyes softened, but her voice stayed still. "And what of the families who've watched me, questioned, doubted, humiliated? What of the children who heard you say I wasn't real? What will they carry into tomorrow?" His lips trembled. He had no answer. "Leave," Amara commanded. He lowered his head, collected his things, and walked down the aisle, shame burning in every step. The others followed, faces pale, eyes downcast. The jet bridge door opened. They stepped out into the blinding light of exposure, never to return. Amara faced the passengers. This flight will continue with a crew who understands professionalism, with a crew who knows respect. The cabin erupted, some in applause, some in stunned silence, but none in doubt. For the first time that day, she had reclaimed not just command, but dignity. Inside the cockpit, Kyle whispered, almost reverent, "Captain, that was incredible." Amara didn't smile. Her voice was quiet, heavy. "That wasn't incredible. That was necessary." She looked out the cockpit window at the vast sky waiting. The storm was gone. Now, there was only flight. The cabin was calmer now, like the hush after a storm. A replacement crew summoned urgently from standby boarded within the hour. They moved with crisp efficiency, no smirks, no whispers, only respect in their eyes when they addressed her. "Captain Lewis," the new lead attendant said with a steady voice, "we're ready for departure." Amara gave a single nod. "Good. Let's show them how it's done." The passengers watched as she returned to the cockpit. Phones were still raised, cameras still rolling, but now the tone had shifted. No longer humiliation captured. This was history in motion. Kyle adjusted his headset, glancing at her with something like awe. Captain, I've never seen anything like that. Amara's eyes stayed forward, scanning her instruments. Then remember it. Remember what it looks like when silence breaks. The intercom crackled to life. Amara pressed the button, her voice filling the cabin once more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are cleared for takeoff. Thank you for your patience today. I promised you a safe, smooth journey across the Atlantic. Her words landed differently this time. Passengers didn't just hear a pilot, they heard a woman who had stood against humiliation and still commanded the skies. A small ripple of applause began in the back, spreading forward until the whole cabin echoed with clapping. Some passengers cheered, others wiped their eyes, and a child's voice rang above it all. She's the real captain. Amara smiled, just slightly, her grip tightening on the controls. The engines roared to life. The aircraft surged down the runway, wheels lifting into the sky. Upward, through the blue, the same sky that had always been hers. The narration came softly, almost tender. Dignity does not come from the absence of storms. It comes from flying through them and still taking flight. Today, one woman lifted more than a plane. She lifted the weight of silence. She lifted the eyes of those who doubted. She lifted the truth into the skies, where no one could drag it down again. Captain Amara Lewis guided her aircraft into the clouds, her voice steady, her spirit unbroken. This flight was more than a journey. It was a declaration. By the time Flight 227 touched down in London, the world already knew her story. News outlets flashed headlines across screens. Airline crew forces black captain to wait outside. Passenger videos go viral. Captain Amara Lewis responds with authority 7 minutes that shook the skies. Clips circulated endlessly, her calm declaration, her dismissal of the crew, her unwavering gaze in the aisle. Millions watched, millions judged. The airline issued a statement within hours. We are investigating. We stand with Captain Lewis. Discrimination has no place in our company. Behind the polished words, firings were confirmed. The dismissed crew would not return to the skies. Their names, once whispered with superiority, were now spoken only in shame. Passengers gave interviews. The businessman in row 3 told reporters, she handled herself with more dignity than anyone I've ever seen in command. The teenager who had live-streamed the event grinned into cameras, saying, she's a hero. Everyone should know her name. Amara, however, stayed silent. She didn't chase cameras, didn't grant interviews. She walked through Heathrow with her head high, her uniform spotless, her stride steady. Kyle walked beside her, humbled. Captain, you've changed everything. Her reply was quiet, almost private. No, I only refused to be erased. That's all. But in her heart, she knew it was more. The narration cut in, like history itself speaking. Some moments are small to those who live them, but when the world watches, small moments swell into symbols. A pause in a jet bridge, a refusal to bow. 7 minutes stretched into testimony. Weeks later, Amara sat in her modest apartment, scrolling through messages from strangers. My daughter wants to be a pilot. Now she saw you and believed. Thank you for standing up. You gave me courage in my own job. You carried all of us into the sky that day. She read them slowly, letting each word sink in. Outside her window, the city hummed, indifferent yet alive. She thought of the passengers, the recordings, the storm that had nearly broken her, and she thought of the silence she had shattered. Her phone buzzed. A message from HQ, Captain Lewis, we'd like you to lead a new initiative, diversity in leadership. We believe your voice can change this industry. Amara stared at the screen, then looked out the window at the open sky. Change. It was already happening. She stood, adjusting her jacket, her captain's bars gleaming in the afternoon light. The sky was calling again, and she would answer. Final narration. Quiet as wings unfolding. Justice is not always delivered in courtrooms or through grand speeches. Sometimes it takes flight in the hands of those who refuse to bow. Sometimes justice wears a uniform, fastens a seatbelt, and lifts a plane into the clouds. Captain Amara Lewis did not just fly that day. She proved that dignity, once defended, can never again be grounded. Amara smiled faintly, her eyes on the horizon. The storm had passed, but her wings were only beginning to spread.